Placing my thoughts elsewhere while you chatted away.
There could be no room for questions.
You do realise that over the last few years his lordship has been the most important pawn that the Nazis have in this country?
It is not my place to be curious about such matters.
You're saying that Elsa and Irma are to be dismissed because they're Jewish?
We have no choice. It's regrettable, Stevens, but there it is.
If those girls go, I shall leave this house.
No place for feelings.
You're extremely important to this house, Miss Ginton.
Am I?
Yes. Yes.
I have something to tell you.
But how long can love wait?
My friend, he has asked me to marry him.
Oh, damn it!
In the remains of the day.
It's not scandalous at all. It's just a sentimental old love story.
Academy Award winner Anthony Hopkins.
Yes.
Academy Award winner Emma Thompson. James Fox. Christopher Reeve. The remains of the day.
Hello, I'm Thomas Carruthers.
And I'm Jazz Susanka.
It's wonderful. It sounded really genuine and nice and off the cuff.
That's how I say
natural.
my name, Jazz Susanka.
I know what your name is. I know.
Good.
The last film we did together, Jazz, was Bridget Jones's Diary.
I saw that come up like on my TV screen. I was like, we should have done Bridget Jones' Diary, but then I remembered we've already done that.
Already done it. Really memorable episode in your mind. That's good to. Well, no, actually, you came in late, if you remember rightly.
Did I?
Because you either overslept or there was something wrong or something, and then you came in late. And anyhow, it doesn't matter. This came about. We wanted to do an episode. We went through a variety of different paths. I first went by the path of name an actor, and you said Benedict Cumberbatch, and I was like, oh yeah, I like Benedict Cumberbatch. And I looked at the films, and I was like, I mean, The Courier was good, but I don't know if it needs a whole episode. And there's no real great Benedict Cumberbatch movies. Then a couple of weeks passed due to a series of what are you about to?
I think that Benedict Cumberbatch has some. The Imitation Game is a good movie.
Yeah, it's all right.
I just wanted to defend Benedict a little bit. I feel like
I think he's doing fine.
Yeah, but just in case he's not, we don't know what's going on behind those dazzling blue eyes.
Is this what I didn't know you had such a thing for Benedict Cumberbatch?
It's Sherlock Holmes, man. I love that show. So,
what did you think of the final horrific series?
We don't talk about that. It's like Game of Thrones. You don't talk about the last season.
Oh, what was it? It was his sister, wasn't it?
Yeah, on an island, and she was in love with Moriarty.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I just had a sudden speech impediment.
It's all right. It's all right. Very bad. Very, very bad. It also seriously struggled from incredible ending, killing Moriarty in the end of series 2. But what are you going to do now? Now you've got a ham-fist reasons to bring it back.
What's going to happen?
Such as a manic Christmas special. Why wasn't that Christmas special just a normal Christmas special? Why, like with them in the Victorian era, why did it have to be all in his mind and he's having a morphine overdose or whatever the hell was wrong?
Well, Sherlock Holmes' drug addiction is a vital part of his storyline.
Yeah, I actually liked the heroin episode with Toby Jones. I thought that was good.
That was a good episode, actually. I might have to rewatch Sherlock,
Unfortunately, I got in the way of your Sherlock rewatch. Well, no, you're not. You're already in the middle of a rewatch. What are you watching?
Downton rewatch.
Downton rewatch. How far are you into your Downton rewatch?
I'm in my season 4 era.
So that has Matthew died yet? Yeah.
Yes, he has.
Yeah.
And Sybil, two of my favorite characters.
Yeah,
Dead.
my ex, the J one, she loved Downton. She was a big Downton fan.
Well, we've all got to have our redeeming features, and maybe that's hers.
Um, so this then changed the line of thinking to what are we going to do for an episode? And you simply said a period drama, and then I said, what Netflix, what streamers do you have? I mean, and The Remains of the Day came up. Age of Innocence came up, which I was quietly disappointed you didn't choose. The Age of Innocence is a wonderful film.
It was my second choice. It was my second choice, but it was a bit too lovey-dovey, and I have also just finished watching Lady Chatterley's Lover.
Have you now?
I just feel like I say just finished. I watched it like a month ago, but I feel like it's too.
The Emma Corrin one, the new one.
Yeah, the new one. I've watched both, but I just thought it was not very good. Sorry, love you, Emma Corrin.
I love Emma Corrin as well, and so
Okay, but
do you want me to get up for?
I also love him because he's in Skins as well.
He was Jack O'Connell. Yeah. He was.
Yeah, he's in that film about Nazis. No, not about Nazis.
What, 71? The IRA movie?
No, the running film, the one about the
Unbroken.
That one. He's my sister loves that film.
Yes,
I think she liked it because he's fit. But
so she was a big fan of Lady Chatterley's Lover.
I don't think she has the patience to watch that film.
Oh, she could just skip her out.
Yeah, just watch the interesting part.
Yeah, so anyway, all of this is to say that currently on whatever it was on Netflix or whatever is the beautiful Merchant Ivory film The Remains of the Day. Now, did you have any at all knowledge of The Remains of the Day, Jazz?
No, I didn't.
No. So when I sent you a series of trailers of period dramas, why did you choose The Remains of the Day?
Anthony Hopkins.
What's your Anthony Hopkins story?
The Father. I watched The Father in
Christopher Court,
yeah.
because you came back one night and you were all very sad.
And I just remember being like, I was just like, damn, that's some good acting, that.
He is great.
Yeah, and I was like, who is this guy? And then they
sorry. So you'd never watched Silence of the Lambs?
No.
I thought we did that. Didn't we do that as a movie Sunday or movie night?
We did, but I didn't connect the two.
Ah, right, yes.
And then things started to fall into place very slowly, as they tend to with me. And then I hadn't, other than those two, and maybe like an odd other one that I happened to maybe watch once or something randomly. I hadn't really watched any of these films, so I thought this is a good chance. And obviously the lovely Emma Thompson.
The wonderful Emma Thompson. Yes, no, I love Anthony Hopkins. I think this rewatch probably puts him in my top 10. I don't know why he's been an outlier, because like Silence of the Lambs is my second favorite film of all time. That performance as Lecter is so indelible and is one of the greats of all time that it even extends to the fact that I love Hannibal and Red Dragon, even though they are not anywhere near as good films.
That's the other film I've watched, Hannibal.
Hannibal, you're right. Yeah. The Father was astounding. As much as Chadwick Boseman was excellent in Ma Rainey, and as tragic as his passing was, I really don't want time and the COVID nature of that Oscars and the weirdity of the Oscars that year, in that he didn't even get a speech because it was COVID, and the fact that there was this huge swell of deserved and tragic love and want to praise Chadwick Boseman in his penultimate, if not final, I can't remember when Da 5 Bloods came out, performance on screen in such a wonderful, in such a great Best Actor nominated performance.
It was really hard that year.
I just think that the Father, I mean, at his age, and the I really did think it was astounding, and I think it went beyond the possible melodrama of what that film could have been. Beyond that, I've always, on this podcast, in my writing and anything, I love the film Magic, where he plays a ventriloquist who's goes slowly crazy. I've always loved that film. It's always been a personal favorite of mine. But I think when you talk about De Niro, Pacino, Streep, Jack Nicholson, I don't know, and if you can only take through 5, I think if you took through Silence of the Lambs, Remains the Day, Magic, The Father, and I really like Nixon. I think he's very good in Nixon. If you took those 5 films, that's as good. You can put that up against any of the best. And I think I want to talk about a deleted scene straight away.
Oh.
There's a deleted scene, and I meant to send it to you and I forgot, but there's a deleted scene, and I've just finished reading the book as well. I was listening on Audible to the book. The book is an incredibly faithful adaptation from Ravapawar Javala. This is an incredibly faithful adaptation, except there is one scene in the book that made it into the Harold Pinter version of the script before it got rewritten by Ruth Pawar Javala. And it's basically, after Mrs. Kenton leaves on the bus and he's crying, and we're crying too, he then goes to the back to the pier and sits with a guy, and the other guy is clearly another lonely person or widow or something like that. And he says, oh, they strike up a conversation, and they find out that they were both butlers. And in this moment, he just breaks down into tears, and he talks about how he's possibly wasted his life in service of somebody who wasn't especially a good person, and he devoted his life to someone who effectively, in a roundabout political way, led to the murder of millions and the war death. And he just breaks down, and he talks about how he's possibly got nothing left to give. And he talks about, and in the book, that conversation then ends up incorporating some of Miss Kenton's comments on the pier about the how evenings are the best time for a lot of people. And in that moment, he cries, and Anthony Hopkins pulls it off naturally, and he pulls it off sensationally well, and he starts crying, and it's a very emotional scene, but it's outwardly emotional. And I want to bring this up in the sense of the film that you saw and the film that I saw, in the sense of without the deleted scene, never gives us that moment.
That's what I was about to say. I would have wanted that, because his character is incredibly good at not saying a lot, but getting a lot, but saying a lot by not saying a lot.
Now,
and that like emotional scene to kind of, I don't know, I felt like something was missing, and you saying that, I was like, that's what was missing.
Well, could you make the argument that in the film as it stands now, the whole point is that we don't actually get that scene, and that the quiver in his eye and the quiver in his lip is the most that we get? Whether his father's dying, whether he's coming to terms that he devoted his life to a war criminal effectively, or whether he is watching a woman who effectively loved him and they could have had a life together, or some fashion of something, and he's once again letting her go away on a bus because that won't ever happen. And he just it's that stiff British upper lip. I can see both. I think if that scene was in there, it's immediately the Oscar clip, and I think he's a shoe-in a bit more for the Oscar. He lost this year, I believe. I've got it here up here. He lost this year to Tom Hanks. So to Tom Hanks for Philadelphia. This was one of those films where it's nominated for 8 things, wins nothing. It is nominated for Best Film. It's nominated for Best Director. It's nominated for Best Actor. It's nominated for Best Actress. It's nominated for Best Screenplay. And there is just a series of different things in its way, such as Schindler's List, taking film and picture, such as Tom Hanks in Philadelphia taking Best Actor, an incredible performance. Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive, unbeatable. Well, it wasn't in the Best Supporting and Best Supporting field, along with Holly Hunter for The Piano for Best Actress, which at the time was a sort of just powerhouse straight through performance. I don't know what to touch on next. Let's touch on. I've got more intro. I've got more intro stuff. Let's talk firstly. Did you enjoy The Remains of the Day?
Yes, I think I did. I only hesitate because I attempted to watch this film 3 times. The first time I fell asleep. And in my defense, I've been on early starts. I've been getting up at 5 o'clock every day, and it was the end of a very long 8-hour shift, and I was ready to go to bed. And I fell asleep during Hugh Grant's little speech where he's got the typewriter and he's like,
"Oh, so you're quite far in."
Yeah, and I just dropped off at the end, and then I tried it again, but I was cooking pasta at the time, and I burnt said pasta because I was distracted by the film, and then I burnt the pasta, and then I watched the last 10 minutes about an hour ago. So I got there eventually, but I also needed things to do while I was watching the film.
Yeah,
it didn't captivate me enough because I think I've got some form of something, and I need to, like, if a film's not fully engrossed me, to get engrossed to the film, I have to be doing something with my hands. So I sat there crocheting my scarf, and then I could watch it. But it wasn't.
Maybe that's why the pasta burned, because you were crocheting a scarf whilst cooking your pasta.
I wasn't. No, I was just watching a movie and cooking pasta at that time. I fell asleep while crocheting my scarf and watching the film.
That's what they always say: never smoke in bed and never crochet and fall asleep.
But yeah, I think I did enjoy the movie.
I think it's an interesting thing to talk about when it comes to, because undoubtedly now all period dramas and all great manor house things get put up against Downton. And it's not that the period drama, and it's not that the manor house, and it's not that the upstairs downstairs situation hasn't been on screens, in literature, and on film for years and years and years. But Downton Abbey was such a phenomena and so totemic, and still, box office wise, reigns quite supreme. Downton Abbey: A New Era was a box office success.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either. That's a lie. I've watched 10 minutes here and there on the cruise ship, because they would do this thing where they would just play the most random film on repeat. And so I had a situationship at the time, and she was ill, and she was like, yeah, let's do this now. Nobody's going to listen. If she doesn't talk to me in a year, but listens to the Remains of the Day podcast, then that is the great achievement of my life. But she was like, and I was like, "Oh, are you all right, darling? How have you spent your day?" And she was like, "Well, I've watched Downton Abbey: A New Era twice."
Oh yeah, that's a sign for get some help. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the biggest sign. And the aye. And so you can't get away from the sort of melodrama of Downton Abbey, in that it was serialized, something was happening all the time, and there was all the sorts of deaths, assaults, and political drama and stuff, and pregnancies and romances that this film specifically just doesn't give you.
No.
It's completely subtle, it's completely under the surface. It as much as it is all there, it's all there in Ishiguro's original novel, which I just finished, and is beautiful and sensational, and it's all there. And there is something to be said structurally, stylistically, in the text of, it is on purpose that a lot of the Nazism and a lot of the World War II stuff is under the belt. You know, it's there. You can see it. It's in the text. It's there, but there is no. There's constant mention of the libelous case that Mr. Darlington was sent to court for libel. We don't see that. We don't see some big screaming arguments. We see pleasant meetings and pleasant discussions, and just then and again, there are times when you think you're going to get somebody openly admit to Nazism or something like that. Sorry, sir, there's something in the other room. And it's something as stupid, like you immediately messaged last night talking about the French diplomat and his feet.
Person in this movie, Mr. Feet. I love him. Just a French man concerned about his feet. And honestly, same.
Yeah.
Like, I'm concerned about those feet. And Steve, is his name Stevens in the film? Yes, it is.
He's Mr. Stevens. Yes, Stevens. Yes.
The feet as well. So much so that he, it was the first thing he thought of after seeing his dead father. I was like, you know what? I'm still thinking about the feet too. So fair dues, mate.
The film and the book play in different ways, but in the film of him finishing consulting with the doctor and then telling the doctor, yes, sir, there's somebody upstairs whose feet need, and in the book, like he's with Mrs. Kenton, and Mrs. Kenton says the doctor's arrived, and the Frenchman goes, "Oh, wonderful! You got here so quickly." And it's like, and he has to go, "Oh yes, just wait in the other room," but so the book is entirely first-person narrative voice of Stevens, so it's all I did this, and anytime he's getting too emotional, he catches himself, or he has to justify it, and he says, "But of course, this is a moment of impropriety, and I must explain." And it's all this inner voice, and he's constantly talking about the pride he felt that he was dealing with Mr. Darlington, and he had it like there's a beautiful paragraph in the book where he's talking about how one of the dignitaries who came clearly to talk about some sort of easement and that eventually led to serious troubles between England and Germany.
Serious troubles,
to say the least.
Way of putting it, yeah.
And he's talking about how one of these German guests said, "Oh, what wonderful silver." And then he does this paragraph where he's talking about, "I felt that I did a part in that foreign policy because I put the man at ease. Perhaps if the silver was not up to a certain standard, then perhaps he would have been more agitated, and Mr. Darlington would not have been able to achieve the policies and conversations that he facilitated." And it's that. Do you think the film is straddling two things, and in that sense doesn't achieve either, in the sense of there's quite a negative thing to open up with, but in the sense of, do you think it should be completely a film about an elderly butler coming to terms with the fact of Mr. Darlington's nature, and do you think in that turn that the Mrs. Kenton love story gets sort of not short shrift but gets less focus? I felt, especially in the book, actually, I feel in many ways that it's the astounding work of Emma Thompson and Anthony Hopkins in their performances and those moments that they do share together, that it kind of creeps up on you how much of a love story this is. Or am I just completely being negative?
I didn't read it as a love story, and I got slightly concerned when I started to,
Right,
because Anthony Hopkins, love him and everything, but he looks very old in that film. I
agree. I think this. So this was originally right. I'm going to do my preamble now. So So originally, Mike Nichols, director of The Graduate, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Heartburn, Postcards from the Edge, one of my top 5 directors of all time. Always worked with Meryl Streep, not always, but worked with Meryl Streep a lot. He read the book and he optioned it, and he was planning to direct the film with Meryl as Mrs. Kenton.
Right.
I think as wonderful as Emma Thompson is in this film, I think there is something lost in the fact that she plays visually a lot younger than Anthony Hopkins.
Yes, I agree.
And this leads on to the next point, which is that this is only the following year after Howard's End, which was directed by James Ivory, produced by Merchant Ismail, and written by adapted by and written by Ruth Prower Javala, and also and is another grand period drama, and also features Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson in a sort of romance, to the extent that, and it's a beautiful, incredible film, and Emma Thompson wins the Oscar for that. And so they're playing on a bit of that chemistry again, but that chemistry works a lot better in that film. And also, you have never seen Howard's End and have anything to do with it.
When you said that, I was kind of comparing it to how they paired Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio together in Titanic, and then tried to recreate that in a different way in Revolutionary Road. And it just doesn't, it feels a bit like a cop-out, because you feel like you're watching the two characters from the previous film again, and it's like, oh, could have given me a different combo in this, and I probably would have liked it a bit more. And I just think, like, in this film particularly, she looks too young. I read it as father-daughter kind of vibes, because she's always on about how she doesn't have a family. And then when it came to the book scene, I was a bit like, oh, why is she about to kiss him? And I also thought that he was going to reveal that he was reading Mein Kampf. That's what I thought he was going to be reading. I was like, oh my God. And then it was like, it's a romance novel. And I was like, it's what? What? I thought he was investing in his lordship's career choices, but no, he's just reading a bit of romance, because he's not.
Maybe he's reading Lady Chatterley's Lover.
Yeah, maybe. I was very concerned about where that scene was going, and I think it went a very different direction. And then that's when I started reading it as a love story, and I was a bit like, oh, you look like you could be her father.
Yeah, I don't like. It's very reactionary. I'm not one of these people who immediately jumps to age discourse, because I think it can get incredibly overblown, and it's just an easy thing to jump at. But I think the fact that we don't get, I mean, this is just undermining all of the subtle work that's in the film. But the fact that we don't get a kiss, or the fact that we don't get any sex, or the fact that we don't get any consummation of the love, never does the easy work that sometimes helps with age discourse movies. Like, I don't know. So if there was a sex scene or a kissing scene, and there was actual, that physical chemistry there that was undeniable, and we can see that, then that sort of cuts the corner. Whereas that never has any of this. So it's like what you're saying. And there is a part of me that reads the ending of her not being lost. Like in the book, she literally says, she's like flirting around the subject. She's like, oh, sometimes I think about, life and, possibilities of life, but that's no good. Sometimes I think of a life with you. And you're like, oh, so you're just going to say it. Whereas in the film, never really have that moment. And so I sometimes read the bus scene as her crying and looking at this man, knowing this is his life, and a sort of pity and sadness, looking at him going, oh, you're going to go the way of your father. You're going to die in service. And
yeah, but even his father had a relationship, because otherwise he wouldn't have been there. So he had something, but he's really just like, yeah, his whole life has been being in service. And I think that is like the film, like that's why I hate to relate it like back to Downton, but it is giving Carson in Downton in those early seasons where like he can't like commit to the change, and it's like the dying industry of being in service and all of that palaver, and like him not having a place in the world thereafter. But I don't know, I just felt very, very sad for him in that movie, especially at the end with the pigeon. I almost forgive the fact that there is a pigeon in that scene, because I am definitely afraid of them, and I was like, oh well, this is now like decreasing at least 1 point for me. But yeah, I forgive it because he's just a cute old man.
Yeah, he is. It's so beautifully emotional and pained, and like, so just a quote from Mike Nichols here. One of his interests in the project was, nobody has ever asked in a movie what it's like to be a butler, what it's like to be the person who's in the scene and doesn't speak. And that's another thing. Obviously, again, we've got years and years of Downton now. Upstairs, Downstairs was actually before this, I believe, and even Gosford Park to an extent. But at that time, it wasn't a known commodity. Throw into that the elements of the war and the sort of, what's the word I'm trying to think of? The banality of it, not even banality, but like the creeping nature of evil, in that maybe I'm naive and maybe I'm wrong to say this, I genuinely don't believe that Lord Darlington at that time thought he was doing any bad at all. I genuinely think he was, I think a really interesting moment, and you can read this incredibly negatively and just say that he's a guilty man who's done horrible things, is when he goes back on firing the Jewish girls.
I was just about to say that, because it kind of clocks for him, I think. And he's like, oh.
You could pessimistically read that as trying Kazuo Ishiguro trying to have his cake and eat it too, or whatever, of, you know, oh well he's evil, but also he was good. But I think that goes in, it's a bit like, you know, a lot of, it's very hard to speak as if these people knew what was to come.
Yeah, that's the thing. You've always got, what's it called?
Hindsight. Yeah. They were all working at that time, seemingly, for periods at least, to avoid another war. More than anything. So an original script was written by Harold Pinter, famed playwright, and John Cleese was allegedly offered the role of Stevens. And however, he said he withdrew after Harold Pinter took the humor out and made it, in Cleese's words, relentlessly down. Now, then in a Mike Nichols interview, he said that the Pinter script was very scary but very funny. So I don't really know, sort of colliding things there, because there is it's not ha ha ha, laugh out loud, it's not Bridesmaids, but there is a humor in this film. I mean, the broadest scene obviously being the scene at the hedges, which is directly taken from the book of Stevens being tasked incredibly to tell Hugh Grant the birds and the bees. There is more humor in the book in a sense, but again, it's all very dry and very subtle. And it's stuff like, oh, I planned to make 3 witticisms today, and I only did 2, and that sort of thing. So it's never laugh out loud, obviously. Apparently, go on.
I think there are some, like, now that I think about it, one of the scenes that did make me chuckle was when he's in the pub.
Oh, yes.
He says the phrase over and over and over again.
In the pub?
Like, yeah, where he talks about like how he was like unofficially like politically inclined or whatever.
Yeah, well, in an unofficial capacity, I worked more in foreign affairs.
Yeah, and then we have there's a scene that follows on from that a bit later where it's kind of like he's being interrogated by the opposite end. So obviously he's being interrogated by the working class, if you like, about his like, you know, his well-spokenness and blah 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 and what they think. And then in the following scene he's being interrogated by the upper class, being viewed as the working class.
Just bullied. I mean, you know, it's just 3 cigar chomping, brandy swinging, the epitome of stereotype of what you'd imagine rich lords of the time to be. And they're just one of them is trying to prove the point that political decisions should not be left up to the working class. And to make that point, he belittles, bullies, and humiliates Stevens, a man who's just doing his job, by pulling out the most ridiculous foreign affairs that you've ever heard of. that I'm sure some were public knowledge, I guess, at the time, but asking him about tax trading and tax trading in France. And even if Stevens is incredibly knowledgeable of it, he is not in a position, he's never going to say, well, actually, yes, I do think the tax embargo is a good thing. And it's all just to win a bloody argument at the cigar, at the chomping cigars.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like the two different phrases that he says, like the way that they kind of, what's the word?
Juxtapose?
Yeah. They're each other. It is funny.
Yeah.
I found it funny. I was like, seeing what you did there.
So before we take our first break, let's touch on Merchant Ivory, which is just an astounding work of films. James Ivory and Ishmael, what's his name? Anyway, Merchant, who were life partners and business partners for life for around 45 years, I believe, until Merchant died in 2004, I believe. Yeah, Ismail Merchant, pardon me. I said Ishmael like Moby Dick. Ismail Merchant. Ismail Merchant from Bombay, James Ivory of English descent, who was from Oregon, apparently. And then they made a series of works with adapting or using Ruth Prouar Javala as a writer who was of Indian descent, I believe, but also of Jewish descent. Her family actually ran away from the Nazis. And just this incredible team of two gay men and their friend, their female friend, making some of the biggest independent films of all time, with The Room with a View, Howard's End, This, Remains the Day, and they were all huge Oscar successes. Ruth Prouar Javala won for Room with a View and Howard's End, and they often made an awful lot of money and attracted these incredible stars. And so when the Mike Nichols project fell through with Meryl Streep, possibly with Jeremy Irons, and the Harold Pinter script was shelved, they seemed an ideal person. And Ismail Merchant talked about how it was such a relief to have good material come to them rather than them trying to find it in another way. And it can't be understated that I don't think without Merchant Ivory Productions there would be no Downton or anything that we can conceive of.
I think that's fair to say.
Indeed. We're going to take our first break and then we'll be back to talk about the actual film in the nitty-gritty.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't like that either. I didn't like it. Didn't like it. It was not enjoyable. And we're back. Okay, so the actual film itself. So they cast, one last thing. So like we talked about, Mike Nichols dropped out. Love Mike Nichols, one of the greats, because the film Wolf was overrunning. Now, if I told you that one of my favorite directors directed a film where Jack Nicholson was a werewolf and his love interest was Michelle Pfeiffer, you would say, what, Jazz? Is that your favorite film of all time?
I would say I need to watch that movie immediately.
The shame is
the best movie ever.
It's we can do Wolf. I'll watch Wolf any day of the week. The problem is it's not very good. There are long scenes of issues about publishing. They're both publishers, and there's a lot of issues about publishing. However, it does have a scene where Jack Nicholson pisses on somebody's feet and says, "Well, it's an interesting movie." Anyway, so that movie was experiencing major issues when it came to rewrites and reshoots. It wasn't going very well. And,
wonder why.
Yeah. And so Mike Nichols, here's a quote. "It was the final irony that we were turning Jack Nicholson into a wolf whilst they were sorting out the silverware." So the choice was either they wait until Wolf finishes and Mike Nichols directs it 2 years from now, or they get the ball rolling. The book had already been out a couple of years, and they got the ball rolling with Merchant Ivory, like we talked about. And they cast Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson. after the success of Howard's End. So Hopkins here, I've cornered the market on people who are caged, and I don't mean Hannibal Lecter, I mean emotionally caged. It's very, very funny from Anthony there. So we kind of already touched on a lot of my best 10-minute stretches. Let's talk now about the failing health of Stevens Senior, and how, what's that face? Didn't do it for you?
Just
Bit
sad
too on the
when
nose?
old
Oh,
people
just sad. Yeah.
die.
Yeah, it is sad. It's sad when they die bent over a dustpan and in a state of like absolute paralysis from a stroke.
Yeah, that is sad. It's when the doctor, what did the doctor say to him? He was like, it was a very serious stroke or something
Yeah.
like that. And he's like, I hope that brings comfort to you.
Yeah, it's a very
I was
serious
like,
stroke. He felt barely any pain. Barely?
yeah,
Just say.
yeah, just tell the truth. He died horribly in a job that he was no longer qualified to do.
Let's talk about Miss Kenton and the love affair, in that, well, it's not an affair, but you know what I mean, in the love story there, in that one of the burgeoning rat-a-tat-tat back and forth of their relationship, friendship, whatever it is her being immediately offended by his rudeness in reference to her lack of abilities that isn't actually true. And then that comes immediately on the heels, or the opposite of on the heels, before his father's ailing health, which she takes as a chance to rebuff. Well, he starts off with the comment of, "Who did I hear you call William?" Were you referring to Mr. Stevens? You can refer to him as senior if you like, but you must, in trying to bring into the house some sort of honor for his father, who was clearly at his last stages of life, and they're trying to give him a job of service. And so then she is constantly faced with an inept man, and she doesn't know anything of his greatness prior. And so she takes that as a thing of, you know what, I'm gonna get one up on this Stevens. I'm gonna tell him, no, actually, your father's shit. He left a dustpan out. There's the whole business about the Chinaman statue, and you've left this out. He's left this. And how did you feel about that? Do you find that makes the character of Miss Kenton a little bit not off-putting, perhaps, but a little bit like unlikable in that she's going after this old man? Or in this moment, are you completely understanding?
I was kind of on the same page as her, if I'm being honest. I was a bit like, she's saying what we're all thinking. Mans needs to be, at home with a book, cup of tea. He does not need to be running around this house doing half-assed jobs and, effectively just making people feel a bit sorry for him. It wasn't a very graceful way out, was it?
No. And in the book, it's actually Miss Kenton who notices the sweat on the nose as well. And she says, I noticed the sweat on his nose the other day. And I think, again, the masterstroke of the story of the film of the book is Emma Thompson's performance when it comes to the death and the writing of it, and that incredibly beautiful back and forth where she pulls him aside and says, I'm afraid he's died. And obviously she expects him to say, oh, right, I'll come up now. And he says, no, I'm very busy at the moment. And then he talks about how, this is what his father would have wanted, perhaps, to the honor of working such an incredible house when such an important meeting's going on. And then she has that incredibly beautiful line of, I'm paraphrasing here, I can't remember the exact line, but if you wouldn't mind me allowing to close his eyes, sir. And such formality around something as brutal and horrible as death is where that shift occurs of Miss Kenton and the emotionality of the two and the sweetness in a sense.
Yeah, I that's why I think I got more father-daughter from them
Yeah.
than I did lovers, because it I feel like with a lover you would have that informality of like, you can tell me how you are feeling, or do you know, I just felt like, because there was such formalness to that interaction, and all their interactions really, until we see her, at the very end of the film, before she trots off to wherever the hell she goes, to her little boarding house, and he finds her crying. We don't really, I feel like she's very emotional and he's not, and the two just never really collide in a nice way.
Well, I mean, when he
And
finds her
that's
crying, and he comes to her, and you think, oh, this will finally be the time he talks to her. There's a particular alcove that I've found needs dusting, Miss Kenton.
But it's kind of like that's what she did to him,
Yeah,
almost, in a sense, with his father. So
yeah.
it's kind of like got
in
my
a
own back.
and in a roundabout
6
way,
later.
you could see that as maybe Stephen's trying to console her. And that thing of, everybody's different, but that thing of, you've got a really depressed friend or something. Okay, let's do something. Let's go out or something. Or like, okay, let's give her something to do. Oh, have you read that book? You should really read that book. I don't know if I've never given a depressed friend that advice, or been given that advice to go read a book. I don't know where that came from.
Go read a book.
Go read a
You'd
book.
feel
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Other 10-minute stretches. The background of that conference and the speeches, and the wonderful Christopher Reeve, who was 2 years away here from the tragedy that would render him completely paralyzed for the rest of his life, and severe. I mean, it's so bizarre that I watched the DVD commentary, the DVD making of or whatever, and I don't know when the making of was made, but it must have been at least 2 years ahead, because you've got video of Christopher Reeve on the set talking about how wonderful the film is, and then it'll cut to him and he's in his wheelchair and he's got the neck apparatus. Did you know that Christopher Reeve had a major
I'm just
paralysis?
finding out about it now.
Yeah, sorry to break it to you.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, no, and then
While the Grinch is in the background.
Is that the Grinch?
Yeah, the fireplace thing ended and now it's just the Grinch.
Wonderful. I'm very excited for Marie-May Huvier to come on. Hi there! I love Christine Baranski. Don't know about the rest. Are you a Grinch person? Not in the sense of you disliking Christmas. I was like, do you like the film The Grinch?
I do like the film The Grinch. It's actually the Benedict Cumberbatch version. So, you know. I don't like that version.
Who narrated Jim Carrey Grinch?
Did it?
No, who did?
Oh, I don't know. I thought you were saying Benedict Cumberbatch did, and I was like,
no, Anthony Hopkins did.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, full circle.
No, you'll be watching it this Christmas and you'll be like, but in reality, he's a really sad old butler.
Sad little old man who carries around silverware.
Yeah. Oh, poor Stevens. Here are some Tom's weirdly specific favourite parts. Traitor's nest to be torn down reference in the opening letter. I very much enjoy the trickling of information of how they give out the World War II stuff. It's a bit bolder in the film because you've got less time, and so you end up with the shop guy going, "Wasn't there a nut saying I'm Darlington or something?" Wasn't he? So you kind of play it a bit bolder. But again, it all works. The wonderful image of Mrs. Kenton walking down the hall that fades away when he's looking through, and in all the hallways he can still see her, even if it's only been 20 years. I know this is just history, but the ironing of a newspaper What an incredibly, like, this is the sort of bullshit that fills their days. The
Imagine ironing a newspaper.
I know.
Why?
I'm all for print. I'm all for print media, and I'm all for DVDs and Blu-rays, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
Love a newspaper. We've got to sort out the ink thing. I know they're hot off the presses, and I know that's the big thing about newspapers. But how, over 100 years, have we never figured out the thing of the ink rubbing off on your fingers?
Good point.
Like,
You
surely,
do have a point there.
surely we can sort this out.
Maybe that's your big thing. Maybe that's what you'll discover, and it will solve so many.
I give up on the
non-topical problems.
writing dream, and just find a patent for ink.
Just work out. Yeah.
The needlessly dramatic slow motion fall with the tea tray. when Senior's father.
Oh yes, yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Stephen's holding slightly earlier. Stephen's holding up a drink and being ignored. Such a beautiful, harsh image when he's giving it to the polo guy. I love Senior's reaction to the falling over. You've got to get those stones right. What if all these fancy foreign people fall over? And then the incredibly sad image of an elderly man kicking in the stones and practicing carrying a tray whilst Emma Thompson watches him. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, very sad. The guy, interesting. No, maybe I'm completely reading into this. There's the guy who really believes in Nazism, and he asks if the soup's vegetarian, and he's really preoccupied with vegetarianism. And I thought, am I completely reading into this, or is the fact that Adolf was vegetarian, is that him like another sort of thing?
Maybe it is a little bit of a hint.
Yeah, maybe he's just like,
a little bit of a,
our Lord and Savior Adolf Hitler. He's vegetarian. There must be something in it. Let's have a go at this vegetarianism. Could be reading into it. Some of the beautiful orange skies of the seaside. Beautiful.
Yeah, very pretty, isn't it?
Yeah. The frozen glare on Stephen's face during the book scene, and that slow wrinkling off of the fingers, and just that blank. You didn't. What are you shaking your head? You didn't like that?
Fingers part. I did not like that part. It just felt weird. And that's why I thought it was going to be Mein Kampf. I was very concerned. Because I was like, why are you gripping onto that book so hard, sir?
Actually, a good idea.
Some random ideology going on
there. It's not really specific. I think the aging is incredibly well done, especially on Emma Thompson. I think it's really... Oh, you disagree? Oh, Jazz.
Her teeth looked horrible, and it looked like she had two black eyes.
Am I just not good with makeup? Should we call Leanne randomly and say, Leanne, we want you to go onto Netflix and just go
watch this end scene.
Yeah, just watch the end scene. I mean, Leanne cries at everything.
With no context. Just tell us if Emma Thompson looks believable.
She would probably still cry. Leanne cries at everything. She's just like, I don't even know why.
No, she doesn't. Leanne's like Stevens. She's like a stone-faced, doesn't cry at anything unless it's old men forgetting things. Or what other one did she cry
We watched
at?
Terms of Endearment, and she was an absolute emotional wreck.
Yeah. It's only like, I read online though that people who cry only at movies have got like some sort of like mental problem. Like yeah. I hate to expose Leanne Baker, my one true love, but
I've not written her Christmas card yet. I can say we've been looking into it, and we think you've got a mental problem.
I'll tell her this weekend. I'm seeing her on Saturday.
Oh, that's wonderful. Where are you seeing her?
Well, it's my birthday on Friday, so we're going up to London for a lovely day out.
So you're in London on Friday? You know I'm in London on Friday.
No, not on Friday. We're in London on Saturday.
I'm in London on Saturday.
Well, come with us.
What?
We're gonna go to the Disham Indian restaurant, and we're going to do all the Christmas markets.
What's the Disham Indian restaurant?
It's like those, like around like Covent Garden, you see that like big line of people queuing up to go into a restaurant. It's
Yeah.
like this like Indian restaurant that you can't book into. You just have to get into the line. So it's like not even that long of a line, but apparently it's like the best Indian food in London.
Okay, so I could move my. We'll discuss this after. The remains of the day. The throwaway line at Hugh Grant being killed in the war, and again that undoubtedly weighing on Darlington. Exactly. Can we talk about this? Hugh Grant's wonderful in this. So this is the year before Four Weddings. So one of his big, the year before.
He looks so much older in this.
Well, I think again they do wonderful makeup, as I was just talking about.
Oh, okay.
His
hair looked great in this. I will say that.
Well, we go back to your thing for Hugh Grant. This is the year before Four Weddings. So one of his big breaks was in the film Maurice, which is a gay period love story from Merchant Ivory. Wonderful film. Recently had a big re-release because it was an anniversary or something. Anyway, wonderful film. Hugh Grant, gay, but it's the Victorian era, so nobody can be gay. Good movie. It's a lot better than that incredibly blunt.
Sorry, can we just rewind? Hugh Grant, gay, Victorian era, nobody can be gay. Great sentences.
Right, blurbs for books.
Hugh Grant, gay.
The Victorian era can't be gay. Maurice is an incredibly beautiful film. Everybody go watch Maurice. Ignore my. Oh, that's what. So speaking of
Tom's description of it.
Speaking of gay romances, James Ivory won an Oscar 4 years ago because he did the screenplay adaptation for Call Me by Your Name. So he's still working. This incredibly intelligent, wonderful writer-director.
It's true.
It's very good. And he wore a shirt with Timothée Chalamet on it to win his Oscar. Was that the year? No, that was not the year we did the Oscars. How long did you stay up the Oscars?
No.
What do you mean, no?
I think I made it pretty far, to be fair.
Yeah. You watched all of the BAFTAs.
The whole thing.
You watched all. No, you watched the full BAFTAs infamously, because we thought that you weren't going to watch the BAFTAs because you were sad with me.
Oh yeah, I was angry at you for something. I can't remember which time. But
I remember. No, I do remember. BAFTA was Tennis Day.
I love Tennis Day. I tell that story so often. I love Tennis Day.
Me walking in and going,
"You're an arsehole, mate. You're an arsehole.
You're an arsehole. You're an absolute arsehole."
Game.
And me walking in with a bloody pack of bacon and a butter and going, "Go on."
And milk. You had milk as well.
Come on. And I will, when I'm on my deathbed, I will hopefully be surrounded by my friends, my family, my loved ones. I'll have created a great family, and I'll have an incredible, wonderful success in the writing and acting field. And all of that will not be as specific in my mind as the look Lauren gave me on Tennis Gate to flash, "They are really angry, Tom. Stop making jokes." That was a great. Oh, what a wonderful time!
Just the wrong time. It was. It's so funny.
It was a confluence of many things. Light turning on the pier, and people always cheer about the lights. And then just Stevens holding back his tears, and then that final goodbye, the rain, the hands, the tears, absolutely beautiful. Do you have any really specific little favourite moments in this film, Jess? I know it was your first watch. The feet. Oh yes, Mr. Dupont and his feet. So the building.
I'm trying to think, maybe something else.
No, I think your love of the feet is good enough.
I feel like I had something else, but no, I'll stay with the feet.
I don't blame you.
Feet and Appleman, the shopkeeper, and the sudden I just never thought how you could see apples and then go, I want apples. And Stephen's just really wanted apples really quick. So the sudden need for apples and feet are my favourite.
Your sudden
really
need for
specific
apples
moment.
and feet.
Yeah.
Interesting, Jazz. The best single minute, the opening letter from Mrs. Kenton. Mr. Stevens Senior discussion with Mrs. Kenton again. The sending to discuss with Hugh Grant the matters of the ducks and the geese and the shrubs and the leaves. And then in the pub talking about foreign affairs, I enjoyed that a lot. The book scene that we talked about, whether it be erotic or familial. And then the bullying that we talked about again, the asking the series of questions of Stevens and Stevens every single time. I'm sorry, sir, but I'm unable to be of assistance in this moment. Very harsh, brutal, horrible scene. And then when Mrs. Kenton comes in late and he goes, I trust you had a pleasant evening. And she's like, I accepted his proposal of marriage, by the way. And it was all, that's the sort of dramatic, not melodramatic, but dramatic scene that is kind of Downton, but we only get one, and then it's immediately subdued by, do you want to go clean? Is there any problems? Do you have any other nominations that I missed for best single minute?
I did, but it's gone out of my head.
We've kind of done a roundabout conversation and touched on everything in a roundabout way. A couple of best lines. I am a coward. I'm frightened of leaving, and that's the truth. All I see out in the world is loneliness, and it frightens me. That's all my high principles are worth, Mr. Stevens. I'm ashamed of myself. And then, Miss Kenton, you mean a great deal to this house. You're extremely important to this house. And I mean, I guess you could.
Love that.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's very nice. And then when she gets the one up at dinner of, yes, Mr. Stevens. Yes, Mr. Yes. Oh, no, it's for Mr. Stevens Senior, Mr. Stevens, and her getting the one up on the ridiculousness of not being able to call the under butler the William. What do you think about your
popped back into my head.
Oh, go on.
My 1 minute scene is when Lord Darlington tries to speak German to the German girls.
Yeah.
Very good scene. That.
And he keeps going. So sprechen willkommen. I just told them that welcome to the house.
Yeah. And she's just there like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
They speak excellent English, then proceeds to ignore that. Great stuff.
It's sorry. What do you think it might be a fantasy on the part because of my experience? And then obviously the culminating line of the entire film, I was too busy serving to listen to the speeches. I mean, that's your whole thing in a nutshell. I don't think we've done this category yet with you. Best specific Halloween costume. I'm going to go for
I was confused by this because I was expecting a Halloween scene. I was like, oh, am I going to choose my favourite Halloween costume? Where's the Halloween scene? There wasn't one. I'm assuming you mean which costume would be the best to go as for Halloween.
Yeah, it's normally a lot more fun on films like Batman, not the period drama The Remains of the Day. I'm going to say...
You just have to go as the butler, wouldn't you?
I would say I would say make out of cardboard 2 little boxes, paint them like water basins, roll your trousers up and walk and go around like Mr. Dupont.
Yeah. Or go as Steve. Like I would quite fancy that butler outfit, especially that the all white bow with the little things that look like they're gonna stab you in the neck. Or Hugh Grant with these little glasses.
When you say fancy, are you talking about you would fancy it on somebody, or you would enjoy wearing that?
I would enjoy wearing it. If someone came up to me with that outfit on, I'd be like, what's going on? But I would enjoy wearing it.
Well, hopefully it would be a fancy dress party, not just something that somebody's worn.
Not just showing up on a date in it.
I would agree, Jazz, if somebody at a random house party was dressed in a butler's tuxedo, yeah, that might be a turn-off. But if it was a fancy dress party, I might give them a little bit more lenience.
I might be impressed, actually.
Yeah, that was a good thing on the ship. I was always dressed in my tuxedo or my nice suits, and now I just wear a polo and jeans.
It's better than my Costa outfit.
Well, it's one of those things. What's the change? I've got two, and they're quite specific. Now, we've touched on some other things. Do you have any specific other changes that you want to bring to bear?
You go first. Let me think.
Okay. I thought his father's love confession on the bed came a little bit out of nowhere. It kind of immediately was, I always loved your mother. You know that, don't you? And I mean, you can look at it as he realizes he's going to be dying and he wants to get it out. And I know obviously that's what it is, but I think just in that scene, in that moment, it does come a little bit out of nowhere. And then, as beautiful an image as it is the freed bird metaphor a little bit on the nose?
A little bit. It's very much on the nose. And I also hate pigeons, so I just felt like it was unnecessary.
Yes. Oh, very, very good, sir. Very good, sir. At least nobody said he's free now.
Yeah, thank God. At least they stopped somewhere. They drew a line.
I mean, the aerial shot, it's beautiful. It's great.
Is it?
Oh, all right.
I think it is, but it's ruined by that bloody door. Why'd they keep the door there? I don't need the door. I've seen the door. The door's closed. I get it. Fade away. Let me enjoy the house. I don't need the door there. Sorry. I don't.
I do love
That's my hot take.
Whether you're talking about personal matters or the great films of the 90s, when you do slip into your more London voice, it just always surprises me because they just all slip in and you're just like, nah, don't like it. I thought he was reading Mein Kampf. No. I was like, all right. Okay, interesting. Are there any other changes that have come to mind? It's okay. We've touched on a lot of stuff. When it comes to.
I'd cut out that German lady singing. Don't like that.
What's wrong with German?
I just don't. I just hate how he also walks up to her and goes, "Which is an excellent display of German culture." I was like, was it? Was it?
Well, it was to him, wasn't it?
Yeah, well,
you know, he's hiring the German maids. He's hiring the German. He's doing the German singing. It's all. Oh, I'm learning my German. I'm doing my part.
The other thing, the whole little B storyline of the love between that maid.
Yeah, sure.
Why do we need that? Cut that out. Waste of screen time.
Waste of screen. I mean, it's just it's just. Yeah, but you know why it's there. It's just like literally in Mrs. Kenton and Mr. Stevens's face of, oh no, you could run away if you wanted. You could do it. It wouldn't be great.
But we know that anyway.
Okay, no, I understand. It could be a little bit, but when you look at it, not much time is spent on it at all, really.
No, but because there isn't, it feels like it's just a bit
underdeveloped.
Yeah, and I was just a bit like, well, no, you wouldn't want that anyway, because I can guarantee you that she's going to end up pregnant and alone in the next 5 years. So, no, you wouldn't really want to run away because they're not really in love. Like, do you know what I mean?
You're kind of putting a lot of stuff on this people.
But that's why I was like, it just give me more Hugh Grant over that. Sorry.
I agree. Okay. I think I would love a scene with Emma Thompson and her. And she can do the whole, well, I love him and he's so warm and he always tells me how much he loves. Oh, no, but this is the thing. We always play this game. Or like, it's when my famous Will story, well, it's not famous. He was talking about Misery and he was like, I just like, because there's a bit in Misery where she says, I've never liked the rain. It gives me the blues. And Will said, yeah, I wanted, like, why didn't she do like a monologue, like her father died in the rain? And I was like, that's the worst suggestion I've ever heard. And every time we do these conversations, I was like, oh no, a scene with Emma Thompson and that maid would be really good, where the maid says, I love him because he's so warm and he tells me he loves me all the time. And you could see what Mr. Stevens isn't giving or anything like that. But on the other end, not really. And then we go back in a full roundabout way to the deleted scene of, is this a film missing that emotional release, or is the restrainment and the confined emotionality the thing that makes it the beautiful, tender, painful film it is?
I'm going with the latter, because now that I've had time to think about it and we've gone through the whole movie, I feel like if I saw him be emotional, I would feel like it's very out of pocket for him. And I also would feel like it's just, sometimes they insert scenes just for the sake of, we want to win an Oscar, so let's put this really emotional, good acting scene in, and that will be your shoo-in. And I was like, no, I don't need it actually, because that's who he is.
I stand by one of the great performances of the past 10 years is Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong in First Man. And he is completely quiet and reserved that whole film. And if that film had a scene where he was like, we got to get to the moon, because if we don't get to the moon, because there's a little boy in Idaho who dreams of going to the moon and we're going to show him, he would be a shoo-in for that Oscar. But there is never that scene. And it's all in his eyes and it's all subtlety. And I know that's Gosling's thing with Drive and stuff like that. And I mean, you don't even have to go back that far. I'm not saying that Marriage Stories and, like, obviously everybody just immediately jumps to the argument. But like Adam Driver in Marriage Story versus Joaquin Phoenix in Joker, Adam Driver in Marriage Story is the performance I think is better, and I still think about today, even if Joaquin Phoenix was excellent, but it's a very, I am doing a performance. I mean, there are many different performances. We don't need to now spend this final 6 minutes litigating whether subtlety is more important than over the topness. First question, is this the saddest Tom's Big Question of all time? Second question, the actual question. Will Stevens retire or will he just die in service?
He'll die in service.
You were straight in there, weren't you?
Yeah, he's going to be like his dad. He's going to trip, have a stroke. Something's going to kill him off. He'll bang his head on a dustpan. I don't know, but he's dying in service. That man is.
New Tom's Big Question. If Mr. Stevens was like, finally to Mrs. Kenton, I want to marry you. I know it's like the worst ending for this film ever, but like he said, leave him. I'll marry you and we'll be happy. Do you think No, I know he wouldn't. It's a stupid question. I take it back. I'm sorry. I take it back. A few fun facts. I really do only have a few. Hugh Grant once said that this was the best film he ever starred in.
I don't think he can claim he starred in it, though, can he?
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say something like, I love Bridget Jones. But
I do love Bridget Jones.
I didn't think
we
you were
also
going to
haven't seen his performance as the Oompa Loompa yet, so that could be his best performance. I'm banking on that, to be honest.
You love Timothée as well. I do
love Timothée Chalamet. I do love him.
When are you watching Wonka? Wonka will have come out, and I will have posted my review. It'll have been a couple of weeks or so. When are you watching Wonka?
I've got to watch Saltburn first before I
Yes, you do.
Watch. It's next weekend. It's next weekend's plan. I've already got it Saturday night.
Do I travel down to London again next Saturday and watch Saltburn again?
Because I don't know anything. I've only seen the trailer, and every time it comes up on View page, I'm like, go,
yeah.
Because I want to experience it. I'm
all in. I'm all in on Saltburn.
But Wonka will be the watch after that. I feel like it needs to be more close to Christmas for me to watch Wonka.
I think you should watch. I think you should watch Wonka and then straight into Saltburn.
Do a back-to-back.
Preferably wait till both are on streaming and then watch them both in 20-minute intervals. Watch Saltburn for 20 minutes. Watch one again.
And then a little orange Hugh Grant in the net.
You have no idea what's coming for you with Saltburn. I'm all in.
So
I'm all in on Saltburn. Love it. It's murder on the dance floor. Loved it. Sir Anthony Hopkins, as a guest on Inside the Actors Studio, said that he got tips on how to play a butler from real-life butler Cyril Dickman, who served for 50 years at Buckingham Palace. Dickman said, "There's nothing to being a butler, really. When you're in the room, it should be even more empty."
Oh, that's a bit sad, isn't it?
Bleak, isn't it? Yeah. In the end, Hopkins said that this is the story of all of our lives. If we try to avoid pain, then we avoid life, and Stevens avoided his life.
Fucking hell. All right, mate, calm down. Do you know what? He's got a point. He's got a point.
He has. I was thinking this. I mean, we don't need to do...
It's sad, but man's got a point.
2 minutes 60. We don't need to do Tom's relationship corner again.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, but it's like, it's so much easier just not being rejected.
What's that line? It's better to die numb than to feel at all. Noah Kahan.
It's better to die numb than to not feel at all.
And sometimes I'm like, you know what? He's right. It is. But then I think of all the things I'd be missing out on and blah, blah, blah. Joy and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Such as meeting your good friend Tom in London.
Yes. You should come.
I'm watching. Well, we'll organise this now. Any final thoughts on Remains of the Day?
I feel like a lot happens and a lot doesn't happen in this movie. And Emma Thompson's teeth deserves better. They've been through a lot with Nanny McPhee as well, and I feel like they didn't.
The Big Bang. Big Bang happened, yeah.
Exactly. Justice for Emma Thompson's teeth.
This was never the movie I ever thought we were going to talk about. What a bizarre...
Oh, odd choice, but I liked it.
It was nice. It was lovely, Jess. Right, we're going to go organise a curry. Have a wonderful night. And serve your masters, but also live life to the fullest. And by serve your masters, I definitely meant butlering. I was not making any reference to the full Hitler thing. Yeah.
Oh God.
Let me just.
Yeah, make that distinction very obvious, please.
I just love that this is going to cut out randomly 10 seconds, and I'm going to be halfway through defending, well, not Hitler.
But guys, Nazism is not okay. Just want to make that clear.
Just want to say completely on the record, Nazis, not great. I'm going to say it, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. I'm doing the hands.
Whatever needs to be said.
It's taken longer than I thought. I thought it was going to...